I left Portland on a Thursday with $230, a duffel bag, and about half a tank of gas. That was it. Everything I owned that still mattered was folded on the back seat of my Civic. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, socks that didn't match, a phone charger with exposed wire near the plug. The rest I'd left in boxes outside my apartment 3 weeks back when the landlord changed the locks. Probably gone by now. Didn't really care. I'd been sleeping in the car since then, Walmart parking lots mostly. One night behind a Safeway until security knocked on the window around 2 in the morning and told me to move along. I figured I'd done okay considering. Kept myself clean enough at a gym I still had a membership to. $8 menu stuff. Stopped shaving because razors cost money I didn't want to spend. It added up. My phone kept buzzing in the cup holder. I knew what it was. Same thing it had been for days. Debt collectors. The landlord's lawyer. My bank about the overdraft fees. I'd stopped answering around the time the eviction notice showed up. What was I supposed to say? That I'd lost my job at the warehouse when they downsized? That my savings ran out faster than I thought possible? They didn't care about the story. They wanted money I didn't have. So I ignored it. Let it buzz. Watch the screen light up and go dark again. After a while, it became kind of rhythmic. Background noise. The Craigslist post showed up on Tuesday. I'd been scrolling through the gigs section in a McDonald's parking lot using their Wi-Fi when I saw it. Night clerk needed. Warrenton or cash paid weekly. Start immediately. No experience required. The pay wasn't great, but it was something. The post said to call a number, ask for Tommy. I called right there. He picked up on the second ring and told me to come down Thursday evening. Didn't ask about my work history. Didn't ask for a resume. Just said to show up and we'd talk. I said okay. Hung up. Stared at the phone for a minute. It felt off, probably. Too easy. But I needed the money and I didn't have a lot of options left. Warrenton was a couple hours south and west, down near the coast. I'd never been, but I knew the area a little. Small towns, fishing, tourists in the summer. It was January now, so I figured it'd be dead. Made sense they'd need someone desperate enough to work nights for cash. That was me. I started driving around 6, took I-5 south out of the city, then cut west on Highway 30 toward Astoria. The sun was already setting by the time I merged onto US 101. It got dark fast out here in winter. The road hugged the coast, and I could smell the ocean before I saw it. Salt and wet wood, and something else I couldn't name. Cold, maybe. The kind of air that gets into your car even with the windows up. I passed a Chevron just outside Warrenton. The lights were bright and clean. The kind of place that looked too normal for how I was feeling. A couple of cars at the pumps. Someone inside buying scratchers or cigarettes or whatever people bought at gas stations out here. I kept going. Then a Dairy Queen. Closed. The sign was off and the parking lot was empty except for a shopping cart someone had left near the entrance. I didn't know why I noticed that. Just did. The North Jetty Inn showed up about a mile later on the right side of the highway. I almost missed it. The sign was this old neon thing, pale blue letters that buzzed and skipped, a couple of them half lit. The building sat back from the road, low and long, shaped in an L. The paint might have been white once, but now it looked grayish under the parking lot lights. There were maybe 5 cars parked out front. Not a lot. Not enough to make the place look busy. It looked open, though, lights on in the lobby, but it didn't look lived in. Hard to explain. It just felt still. Waiting. I pulled into a spot near the front and turned off the engine. Sat there for a second. My phone buzzed again in the cup holder. I didn't look. Inside, the lobby smelled like old cleaning solution and damp wood. The kind of damp that doesn't dry all the way because it's always there, soaking into everything. The floor was linoleum made to look like tile, scuffed in paths where people walked most. There was a couch against one wall, floral pattern sagging in the middle. A coffee table with some brochures fanned out, local attractions, crab fishing, the Maritime Museum. The front desk was straight ahead, fake wood laminate, a computer monitor that looked about 15 years old, a bell, the kind you tap for service, sitting next to a cup full of pens, and a clock on the wall behind the desk. It read 8:40. I checked my phone. 9:03. I stared at the clock for a second, figured maybe the battery was dying or someone forgot to set it right. Didn't matter. Just bugged me a little. "You Daniel?" I turned. A guy stepped out from a door behind the desk I hadn't noticed before. Older, maybe early 50s, tall and thin, thinning sandy hair combed straight back. He wore a windbreaker that looked cheap even from across the room and slacks that didn't quite fit. His eyes were pale gray, the kind that didn't give much away. "Yeah," I said. "Tommy." He didn't offer his hand, just moved behind the desk and leaned against it, arms folded. "You made good time. It's not far." "Far enough." He looked me over, not judging exactly, just taking inventory. "You got ID?" I pulled out my wallet and handed him my license. He glanced at it, didn't write anything down, and slid it back across the counter. "You ever work a front desk before?" "No." "Night shift?" "Warehouse stuff, overnight stocking." He nodded slowly. "This is easier, quieter. Barely anyone checks in after 10. Mostly you're just here." "Okay. You good with that?" "Yeah." He reached under the counter and pulled out a single piece of paper. Not a contract, not an application. Just one page, printed, with some lines at the bottom. He set it in front of me. "This is the agreement," he said. "You work 11 to 7, 6 nights a week. I pay you $200 a week cash every Sunday morning when I come in. You don't talk to guests unless they talk to you first. You follow the rules I give you. That's it." I looked down at the paper. It was bare. Just said what he'd told me, almost word for word, and had a line for my signature at the bottom. "No tax forms?" I asked. "Cash," he said. "Under the table. That a problem?" It wasn't. I needed the money, and I didn't want anything official tying me to one more thing I'd have to explain later. "No," I said. "Good." He slid a pen across the counter. I picked it up. I should have asked more questions, probably. About the rules, about what I'd actually be doing, about why he was hiring someone this fast without checking anything. But Tommy stood there watching me with that calm, unreadable expression. And I got the sense that asking wouldn't change anything. He controlled the keys. He controlled the schedule. He controlled whether I walked out of here with a job or got back in my car with nothing. So I signed. He took the paper back, glanced at my signature, and tucked it under the counter somewhere I couldn't see. "You start tonight," he said. "Tonight? That a problem?" "No." "Good. I'll be back in a minute." He turned and walked through that door behind the desk again. It closed with a soft click. I heard his footsteps fade somewhere deeper in the building. And then I was alone. The lobby was quiet. I could hear the buzz from the neon sign outside faint through the walls, the hum of the vending machine in the corner, my own breathing. I looked around. The desk had a computer, the monitor dark, a phone, old beige plastic, a drawer I didn't open, and under the counter, right where Tommy had been standing, I saw the edge of something else, a notebook, spiral-bound, with a cover that might have been red once but had faded to something close to pink. I pulled it out. The front had a piece of masking tape across it with 2 words written in blue ink, "Night Rules." I opened it. I flipped the notebook open to the first page. The paper was yellowed at the edges, and someone had written in neat block letters at the top, "Night Desk Rules." Below that, 5 numbered lines in blue ballpoint pen. The handwriting didn't match Tommy's vibe at all. Too careful, too deliberate. Rule 1. Do not leave the front desk unattended between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Okay, standard enough. I'd worked overnight warehouse shifts before. You stayed at your station. Made sense. Rule 2. If the desk phone rings twice, stops, then rings once more. Do not answer it. Let it go to voicemail. That one made me pause. I read it again. Specific. Weird, but not impossible. Probably some spam thing that hit the line every night. Maybe Tommy got tired of dealing with it and just wanted it ignored. Rule 3. A guest may ask about room 12. You will tell them it is occupied. Do not rent room 12 under any circumstances. I glanced up at the computer monitor. The screen showed a basic reservation grid with room numbers running down the left side and dates across the top. Room 12 sat about halfway down the list. It looked empty, no name attached. I kept reading. Rule 4. At exactly 4:44 a.m., place the brass key from the drawer on the counter and ring the desk bell once. Wait 30 seconds, then return the key to the drawer. My stomach did a little flip. That was the kind of thing you'd see in a prank setup. College hazing energy. Put the new guy through some ridiculous ritual and film his reaction. Except there weren't any cameras I could see. And Tommy didn't strike me as the type who cared enough to mess with anyone. Rule 5. If you hear knocking from the storage room behind the desk, ignore it. Do not open the door. I set the notebook down on the counter. Right. This was either someone's idea of a joke, or Tommy was testing how desperate I actually was. See if the homeless guy with no options would follow absurd instructions just to keep a cash job. I figured I'd play along. $200 a week wasn't much, but it beats sleeping behind a Safeway and dodging security at 2 a.m. The computer screen flickered. I looked up just as the monitor refreshed itself. The reservation grid blinked, reloaded, and when it came back, room 12 was highlighted in bright green, not selected by me. I hadn't touched the mouse. The cursor sat in the same spot it had been, halfway across the screen near room 7, but room 12 glowed green now, the way the system probably marked available inventory when you were about to assign it. I moved the mouse, clicked somewhere else. The highlight stayed put. I tapped the keyboard. Nothing. The green box around room 12 just sat there, active, waiting. I closed my eyes for a second and told myself it was a glitch. The monitor looked older than my car. Probably the software was just as busted as the neon sign outside. Some automated process trying to flag vacant rooms, or maybe the system defaulting to a test mode Tommy forgot to disable. I opened my eyes. The green highlight was gone. Room 12 looked normal again, empty, but not glowing. "Okay," I said out loud. My voice sounded thin in the quiet lobby. I left the notebook on the counter and sat down in the chair behind the desk. It was one of those rolling office chairs with a torn seat cushion, the kind you'd find on a curb with a free sign. I could feel the springs through the foam. The clock on the wall still read 8:40-something. My phone said it was 9:27. I decided not to think about it. For the next hour and change, nothing happened. A couple walked in around 10:15. The guy was tall, solid build, short, light brown hair, wearing a travel jacket that looked clean but rumpled. The woman next to him was shorter, blonde hair past her shoulders, green eyes that scanned the lobby before she stepped all the way inside. She had a small overnight bag slung over one shoulder. "Hey," the guy said, "we've got a reservation." Gross. I pulled up the system, found their names. Michael and Maddie Gross. Room 8. Checked in for 2 nights. Prepaid online. "Got it," I said. "Just need an ID and a card on file." Michael handed over his driver's license. I copied the information into the fields on screen, moving slow because the keyboard stuck on half the keys. Maddie waited next to him, quiet, her hand resting on the strap of her bag. "You're all set," I said. Grabbed the key for room 8 from the board behind me and slid it across the counter. "Straight down the hall, 4th door on the left. Checkout's at 11. "Thanks," Michael said. He took the key and gave me a nod. Maddie smiled a little. didn't say anything. They headed down the hallway together, and I heard the door to room 8 click shut a few seconds later. Normal. Totally normal. I exhaled and leaned back in the chair. The springs creaked under me. Maybe this was just a regular night shift. Maybe the rules were Tommy's weird way of filtering out people who'd bail at the first strange detail, and the actual job was boring as hell. I could do boring. I'd take boring over sleeping in my car in a Walmart parking lot, with my phone buzzing nonstop from debt collectors. Around 11:40, the front door opened again. A stocky guy in a trucker cap walked in. He had graying black hair buzzed short, a heavy brow, stubble on his jaw, and an oil-stained reflective jacket that looked like it had seen a lot of highway miles. He didn't look at me. Just walked straight to the vending machine in the corner and pulled the fridge door open. He grabbed a Coke, let the door swing shut, walked over to the counter and set $2 bills down without a word. "Thanks," I said. He nodded once, took the Coke and left. The door swung shut behind him, and the lobby went quiet again. I picked up the 2 bills and stuck them in the drawer under the counter where I'd seen Tommy pull the job offer sheet from earlier. There was a brass key in there, too. Small, old-looking, with a worn edge and a round head. I stared at it for a second, then closed the drawer. The rules sheet sat next to the computer keyboard. I tried not to look at it. Instead, I started organizing the counter. Stacked the brochures that were scattered near the edge. Wiped dust off the phone with my sleeve. Straightened the cup of pens. Found a sticky notepad under a pile of old reservation printouts and moved it closer to the keyboard in case I needed it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Another call from a number I didn't recognize. I declined it and set the phone face down on the counter. The wall clock ticked. Still wrong. Still didn't matter. I glanced at my phone. 12:17 a.m. The lobby felt too quiet. I could hear the buzz from the neon sign outside, the hum of the vending machine fridge, and my own breathing. I looked at the rules sheet again. If the desk phone rings twice, stops. Then rings once more. Do not answer it. My eyes moved to the beige phone sitting next to the computer monitor. It was the kind with physical buttons and a curly cord, probably older than I was. The plastic was yellowed, and there was a piece of masking tape on the base with a 4-digit extension written in marker. I checked my phone again. 12:19. The desk phone rang. Loud, sharp, the old-fashioned trill that rattled through the plastic receiver. I froze. It rang again, then stopped. Silence dropped over the lobby like a weight. I stared at the phone. My hand hovered a few inches above the counter, halfway to picking it up before I'd even realized I was moving. 3 seconds passed. The phone rang once more. Just one trill. Then nothing. My heart kicked hard in my chest. I pulled my hand back and pressed it flat against the counter. The phone sat there, silent, ordinary. I waited. It didn't ring again. I answered it anyway. Not because I was scared. I was annoyed. The phone had already done its little pattern, and I'd followed the rule, and now it was just sitting there on the counter looking smug, like some test I'd already passed. I figured maybe it was Tommy calling from wherever he'd disappeared to, or maybe the system had some automated thing that didn't line up with the handwritten rules in the notebook. Either way, I wanted to know. I picked up the receiver and pressed it to my ear. For a second, nothing. Just dead air. Then I heard breathing. My breathing. It came through the earpiece maybe half a second behind what I was actually doing. I inhaled, and a moment later I heard the same inhale echo back at me through the phone. I held my breath to test it, and the sound on the line did the same, delayed just enough to make my skin crawl. Then came the scraping. It started low, like something sharp dragged slowly across glass. Fingernails, maybe, or something that wanted me to think it was fingernails. The sound layered over the breathing, rhythmic and deliberate, and I could feel it in my teeth. I slammed the receiver down hard enough that the bell inside rang a little. My hand was shaking. Not a lot. Just enough that I noticed. I stared at the phone for maybe 3 seconds, then grabbed the cord where it plugged into the wall and yanked it out. The plastic clip snapped free and the whole thing went dead. I set the cord on the counter and kept my eyes on it, half expecting it to slide back into the jack on its own. It didn't. It just sat there in a loose coil next to the notebook. I wiped my palms on my jeans. They were damp. Probably should have followed the rule. That's what I was thinking. The notebook said don't answer. And I'd answered anyway, because I thought I knew better. Because I was annoyed. That was stupid. I checked my phone. 12:24. The computer monitor flickered again, same as before, and when I looked at the screen, the reservation grid was still up. Room 12 wasn't highlighted this time. Everything looked normal. I moved the mouse just to do something with my hands. That's when I noticed the security monitor. It was a small black and white screen bolted to the wall just above the counter, angled down so you could see it from the chair. I hadn't paid much attention to it before. The image was grainy and split into 4 feeds: front door, parking lot, hallway, and what looked like the back exit. The front door feed showed the glass entrance, the dim glow from the neon sign outside, and fog. Thick fog, pressed right up against the glass. I leaned closer. There was a palm print on the door. A hand spread flat against the glass from the outside, fingers splayed. I could see the outline of it through the fog, which was condensing in streaks that ran downward in slow drips. Whoever it was stood just out of view. The camera angle didn't catch them, just the hand, patient and still, and the fog streaking down like something had dragged its forehead against the door and left a smear. I didn't move. My brain did that thing where it tries to logic its way out. Maybe someone was locked out of their room. Maybe they'd lost their key. Maybe they were drunk and confused, but the hand didn't move. It just stayed there, pressed flat, and the fog kept streaking. I thought about the rules again. Rule 1 said, don't leave the front desk unattended. It didn't say anything about not letting people in, but I had this feeling, this gut thing, that going to that door would be a bad idea. So I stayed behind the counter. I kept my eyes on the monitor. The hand didn't pull away. The fog didn't thin. I counted my own breaths. Got to 11 before I heard the laundry room door open behind me. I turned fast, probably too fast, and saw Charlotte. She was stocky, maybe 5'4", with dark brown hair pulled tight in a bun. She wore housekeeping scrubs and a fleece jacket, and she was carrying a black trash bag in one hand. She looked at me, then at the monitor, then back at me. "Stop staring at it," she said. Her voice was firm, not loud, just the kind of tone that didn't leave room for argument. I opened my mouth, probably to say something dumb, but she cut me off. "Follow the rules exactly." She stepped closer and set the trash bag on the floor. "You knew?" "Yeah," I said. "Started tonight." She nodded once, like that explained everything. "Tommy hire you?" "Yeah." "He tell you about the rules?" "He gave me a sheet, and there's the notebook." Charlotte glanced at the notebook on the counter, then at the unplugged phone cord. Her mouth tightened a little. "You unplug that?" "Yeah." "Good." She picked up the trash bag again. "Tommy doesn't work nights anymore. Said he'd already done his time. That's what he told me last month when he switched me to days and brought in the last guy." "What happened to the last guy?" Charlotte looked at me for a second, and I couldn't read her expression. Tired, maybe, or just done with the question. "He left," she said. She didn't explain. Just turned and walked back toward the laundry room. The door swung shut behind her with a soft click, and I was alone again. I checked the monitor. The hand was gone. The fog was still there, but thinner now, pulling back from the glass in uneven patches. No streaks, no smear. I sat down in the chair and opened the drawer under the counter. The brass key was still there, small and old-looking, with a worn edge and a round head. It was attached to a short chain, maybe 3 inches long, with a tiny clasp at the end. I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. The metal was dull, like it hadn't been polished in years, and there were scratches along the shaft. I set it back in the drawer and closed it. My phone buzzed. I flipped it over. 107. I looked at the hallway camera feed on the security monitor. Wet footprints. They were appearing on the carpet one at a time, like someone was walking down the corridor. Except there was no one there. Just the prints, dark and wet, forming in sequence. They started in the middle of the hallway, nowhere near any of the room doors, and moved slowly toward the camera. I watched them appear. Left foot, right foot, left again. I didn't move, didn't look away. Just sat there and counted them as they formed, one set at a time, until they stopped just outside the camera's lower edge. Then nothing. I kept my eyes on the screen. My hands were flat on the counter. The notebook was still open next to me, and I could see Rule 5 from the corner of my eye. Ignore knocking from the storage room behind the desk. Do not open the door. I waited. The footprints stayed where they were, wet and dark on the ugly carpet, and I stayed in the chair, and the clock on the wall ticked forward with the wrong time. Charlotte hadn't told me to clean the footprints. She just looked at them on the monitor and said, "You'll want to take care of that before someone tracks it everywhere." That was it. No explanation, no acknowledgement of what they were or where they'd come from. I figured I didn't have much choice. The mop bucket was in the storage closet next to the laundry room. I filled it at the utility sink, added a capful of cleaner that smelled like fake pine, and wheeled the thing out on its rusty yellow base. The wheels squeaked. One of them kept trying to veer left. I pushed through the door into the hallway. The air hit me first. It was colder back here, probably 10 degrees colder than the lobby, and damp in a way that stuck to my skin. The kind of damp you get near the ocean when fog rolls in thick. I could taste salt faintly at the back of my throat. The footprints were still there, wet, dark against the faded burgundy carpet. I stopped the bucket and just looked at them for a second. They were wrong. Not in an obvious way, not at first. But the more I stared, the more off they seemed. The toes were too long, stretched out, and the edges weren't clean. They smeared outward like the feet had dragged instead of stepped, like whoever made them had been pulling themselves forward instead of walking. I didn't want to think about that. I grabbed the mop, dunked it in the bucket, wrung it out halfway, and started on the first print. The water soaked into the carpet easily, too easily. The print didn't fade so much as dissolve, spreading outward in a darker stain before the fibers started to dry. I pressed harder with the mop, scrubbing in small circles, and the print finally lifted. I moved to the next one, then the next. I kept my eyes down, didn't look up, didn't check the doors on either side of the hallway, didn't glance toward the far end where the prints had started. I just mopped. The bucket water started gray, clean enough, but by the third footprint it had darkened. By the fifth it was almost black, murky, thick. I didn't change it. I kept going, working my way down the hall, and my hands were shaking a little by the time I reached the last print, the one that had stopped just outside the camera's view, just past the lobby door. I mopped it up, wrung the mop out one last time. The water that dripped back into the bucket was the color of old tar. I shoved the bucket back through the door into the lobby, wheels squeaking the whole way, and parked it next to the front desk. My breath came out harder than it should have. I wiped my palms on my jeans again and sat down in the chair. The hallway monitor showed clean carpet. No prints, no wet spots. I tried to pretend the shift could still be normal. It wasn't. The computer made a soft chime around 1:20. I looked up from the notebook. I'd been reading the next page, more rules I didn't want to think about yet, and saw a new reservation pop up in the system. Room 12, late check-in, approved payment, arrival time listed as 1:30 a.m. The name field was blank. I stared at it, clicked on the entry to open the details. Everything else was filled in. Credit card processed, 2 nights booked, prepaid in full. Just no name. I clicked the name field and tried to type. Nothing happened. The cursor blinked but wouldn't accept input. I tried to reassign the room, clicked on the drop-down menu to select a different number. The computer froze. Not crashed, just froze. The screen stopped responding. The mouse cursor wouldn't move. The keyboard did nothing. Then the printer next to the monitor kicked on. It whirred to life, loud in the quiet lobby, and a single sheet started feeding through. I watched it print. A keycard sleeve, standard size, white cardstock with the motel's name printed at the top in faded blue ink, and stamped across the middle in bold black. 12. The printer spat it out into the tray. I didn't touch it. The computer unfroze. The screen refreshed. The reservation for room 12 was still there, still blank. I clicked out of it, opened the guest list, scrolled down, clicked on a different room just to see if the system still worked. It did. I went back to room 12 and tried to delete the reservation. The printer started again. Another sleeve. Same number. Same bold stamp. I pulled the plug on the printer. It kept running. The paper fed through anyway, smooth and steady, and dropped into the tray on top of the first one. I stepped back from the desk. The printer produced a third sleeve, then a fourth. They piled up. The tray started to overflow. The sleeves slid off onto the counter, fanning out in a messy stack. I could smell them now, faintly briny, like seawater, like the footprints. The paper was damp. I didn't touch any of it. The printer stopped after the 7th sleeve. The motor shut off. The lobby went quiet again, except for the buzz of the neon sign outside. I stood there with my hands pressed flat on the counter, staring at the pile of damp cardstock. Then someone knocked on the front door. It wasn't loud, wasn't frantic. 3 knocks, controlled, evenly spaced. I looked at the monitor. A man stood outside the front door. Rain jacket, dark green, maybe black. It was hard to tell in the dim light from the sign. Hood down. He was looking directly at the camera. Not at the door. At the camera. He stood centered in the frame. Perfectly positioned. Like he knew exactly where it was. His mouth moved. I couldn't hear him through the glass, but I could see his lips form shapes, words. It looked like he was saying my name. I checked my phone. 1:11 a.m. The lights in the lobby flickered. Just once, a quick dip. Then they came back steady. The man outside didn't move, didn't knock again. Just stood there, mouth still moving, eyes fixed on the camera. And then I saw the second figure, taller, standing just behind him and to the left, far enough back that the light from the sign barely reached them. They didn't move either, just stood there. Watching. No, not watching. Listening. The way their head tilted. The way they held still. It wasn't the stillness of someone waiting. It was the stillness of someone listening to the building. The man in the rain jacket raised his hand, knocked again. Same rhythm. 3 knocks, controlled. I didn't move. The lights flickered again. My phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced down. 1:11 a.m. Still. The clock on the wall behind me read 8:40 something. I looked back at the monitor. The man's mouth kept moving, forming my name, over and over. The second figure shifted, just slightly. Their head turned toward the door, toward me. I backed away from the counter, not thinking, just moving. My heel caught the edge of the drawer I'd left open earlier, and it rolled out further on its track. Something fell inside. A soft thump. I looked down. The brass key was still there in the corner where I'd left it, but next to it now was a notebook. Thin thing, maybe 40 pages. The cover was water-stained, warped at the edges with blue ink that had bled into the cardboard in spots. I pulled it out. The cover had a name written in the same block letters as the rules sheet. J. Brown. Then below that, smaller. If you're reading this, Tommy hired you for nights. I opened it. The first page was dated March 9th, 2 months ago. The handwriting was neater than the rules sheet, but shakier in places, like whoever wrote it had been holding the pen too tight. First week done. Tommy says the rules are there to keep guests safe. That's bullshit. They're there to keep you safe. Don't get that mixed up. I flipped to the next page. Room 12 reservation showed up again tonight. No name. Prepaid. I didn't make the key card this time. Unplugged the printer before it could start. Phone rang the pattern at 12:19 like always. Didn't answer. Something knocked on the front door at 1:03. Watched it on the monitor for 11 minutes. It left when I didn't open up. The entry ended there. I turned the page. Talked to Charlotte. She said the last guy before me lasted 3 weeks. She wouldn't say what happened to him. Just that he went looking. Tommy told her to stop talking about it. I kept reading. The dates jumped around. Some entries were just a sentence. Others filled half a page. The inn works like a trap. It needs bait. That's the job. You're the bait. The rules keep you alive long enough to do it. My phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it. Another page. Room 12 isn't normal. I checked the blueprints Tommy keeps in the office. There's no room 12 on the guest wing. The numbers go 10, 11, 13, 14. I asked Charlotte. She said there used to be one, but they sealed it off in the 90s. Said it was a mold problem. But it's still in the system. Still takes reservations. I flipped faster now. Figured it out. Keeping room 12 closed is what makes it open. The system wants to fill it. If you block it, it finds another way. Saw it tonight. Guest checked into room 9. Went to bed normal. Woke up in 12. She came to the desk crying. Said the room number on her door had changed. I checked the system. Her reservation had moved. I didn't touch anything. The next page was smudged. Water damage, maybe, or sweat. Tommy knows. He has to. This isn't new. Charlotte said the inn's been like this since before she started, and she's been here 6 years. He's not trying to fix it. He's managing it. Last entry, April 20th, 3 weeks ago. I'm done. I've got enough saved. I'm telling Tommy tomorrow I'm out. If you're reading this, you're the next guy. My advice, don't try to fix it. Don't try to understand it. Just follow the rules exactly and get out as soon as you can. The inn doesn't want you. It wants what you'll bring. That was it. Rest of the pages were blank. I closed the notebook and set it on the counter next to the rules sheet. My hands weren't shaking, but they felt cold. Jerome Brown, the guy before me. He'd lasted a month, maybe a little more, and then he'd quit, or he'd tried to. Charlotte said he left. She didn't say he made it out. The printer was still sitting there, unplugged, but somehow it had kept running earlier. I looked at the stack of key cards on the counter. 7 of them, all stamped with 12. All damp. I reached for the power cord where it hung loose from the wall and pulled it the rest of the way out. The plastic housing around the plug cracked a little more, but it came free clean. Nothing happened. Printer stayed silent. I picked up the cord and traced it back to the machine, found where it connected at the rear panel. The plug was seated tight in its socket, a little rectangular port with 2 prongs and a grounding pin. I yanked it. The cord came out. The printer made a soft clicking sound, like something inside settling, and then stopped. The lobby went quiet. Not just quiet. The kind of silence where you notice everything else. The hum of the vending machine. The buzz from the dying neon sign outside. My own breathing. I stood there holding the power cord in both hands. The plastic was still faintly warm. Then I heard it. The front door handle. Turning. Slow. I looked at the monitor. The two figures were still there. The guy in the rain jacket had his hand on the handle now. I could see his fingers gripping it, testing it, putting pressure on the mechanism inside. The lock held. He turned it the other way, a full rotation, then back again, not forcing it, just checking. Methodical. The second figure hadn't moved, still standing behind him in that half-lit space under the failing sign, head tilted like they were listening to something I couldn't hear. The handle stopped moving. The guy in the rain jacket let go and stepped back. His mouth moved again. I couldn't hear him through the door, but I saw the shape. My name. He was saying my name. Then both of them turned and walked out of frame. I watched the monitor, waited. They didn't come back. At 2:18, Charlotte came through the laundry room door. She looked bad, pale. Her hands were shaking and she was breathing hard, like she'd been running or trying not to panic or both. I stood up. What happened? Back exit won't open. Her voice was tight, clipped. I tried the push bar. Tried the manual release. It's not locked. It just won't move. You mean it's stuck? I mean it won't move. She walked to the counter and put both hands flat on it, leaning forward. I pushed hard enough to bruise my shoulder. Didn't budge. I checked my phone. 2:18. Same as hers, probably. I tried calling my brother, she said. No signal. I've got 3 bars normally. Now it's nothing. She pulled her phone out of her jacket pocket and held it up. The screen showed 0 bars. No service. I picked up my phone. Same thing. Full battery. No signal. When did that start? Don't know. I didn't check until just now. She put her phone away and looked at me. You read Jerome's notebook yet? I glanced at the thin, water-stained book on the counter. Yeah. Then you know. Know what? Tommy sold the rules like they were protection, safety guidelines. Do this, don't do that. Everyone goes home fine. She shook her head. Jerome figured it out. Took him 3 weeks, but he got there. The rules aren't protection, they're feeding instructions. I didn't say anything. There's something under this building, Charlotte said. Comes in with the tide. Jerome wrote about it in the back pages. The ones that got wet. I didn't see that. Last 5 pages, they're stuck together. You have to peel them apart. She reached for the notebook, flipped to the back, and carefully separated 2 pages that had dried fused. The ink was mostly gone, but I could make out fragments. Below the foundation, high tide at 3:47. Sounds like breathing. Charlotte closed the notebook. Tommy's not managing the inn. He's managing what's underneath it, and we're part of the process. What process? I don't know, but Jerome thought the night shift was bait, something to keep it occupied, keep it fed. She looked at the monitor, at the empty front door feed, then back at me. He tried to leave early one night, made it to his car. Tommy found him in the parking lot at 4 a.m., sitting behind the wheel, engine running, just staring at the building. Wouldn't talk, wouldn't move. Charlotte and Tommy had to pull him out. And then he finished his shift. Came back the next night, and the night after that. Didn't try to leave again until his notice was up. Did he make it out? Charlotte didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, I don't know. He stopped showing up. Tommy hired you a week later. My phone still showed 2:18. I looked at the wall clock. Still wrong. Still frozen at 8:40-something. The reservation system chimed. I looked at the screen. Room 12 was still there. Check-in time, 1:30 a.m. We were past that now, almost an hour past. But the room was still listed as pending. I'd been sitting still too long. That was the problem. Just reacting. Following the steps. Watching things happen like I was part of the furniture. The printer had tried to process me. That's what it felt like. Tried to make me part of its routine. Print the cards. Make the keys, check in the guest. Keep the system running. I wasn't going to let the building do the same thing. I opened the drawer and took out the brass key. The metal was still cold, still heavier than it should have been. Charlotte saw me pick it up. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to figure out what room 12 actually is." "Don't." "I'm not just sitting here. Jerome tried that. He went looking. You know what happened. He came back. He came back wrong." Charlotte's voice went flat, hard. "I saw him that last week. He wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, just staring at the monitor, watching the feeds, waiting for something. He wouldn't tell me what." I closed my fist around the key. "The rules say to put this on the counter at 4:44. Ring the bell. Wait 30 seconds. Then put it back." "So? So what's it for?" Charlotte didn't answer. I pocketed the key and walked toward the door behind the desk. The one Tommy had used when he left me alone on my first night. The one that led to the staff hallway. "Where are you going?" Charlotte called after me. "Pool's back here, right?" "Yeah, but I'm just looking." I pushed through the door. The hallway on the other side was narrow. Beige walls, fluorescent lights that buzzed louder than the ones in the lobby, linoleum floor with a pattern that might have been meant to look like tile but just looked cheap, doors on both sides, storage, maintenance, electrical, all labeled with plastic plaques screwed into the wood. I walked past them. The air back here was colder, damper. I could smell chlorine faintly, so the pool was close. At the end of the hall, the floor sloped down slightly. There was a door on the left marked "Pool, closed for season," and on the right, another door. Old wood, darker than the others. No plaques, no labels, just a brass number screwed into the center. 12. I stopped walking. This wasn't on the guest wing. I'd been down that hallway when I mopped the footprints. The rooms there were numbered in sequence. This was staff side, behind the desk, somewhere guests weren't supposed to go. But the number was clear. Polished recently, maybe. It caught the fluorescent light and gleamed. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the brass key. It fit the door. I could tell just by looking. Same age, same wear pattern on the metal. I held it up to the lock. Then I stopped. Jerome's notebook. Keeping room 12 closed is what makes it open. I pulled my hand back. The key stayed in my palm. The door stayed shut. And I stood there in the hallway, one step away, trying to decide what happened next. I went back to the front desk and picked up Jerome's notebook again. Charlotte stayed by the laundry room door, watching me. I flipped to the back pages, the ones that were stuck together, and tried peeling them apart more carefully this time. The paper tore a little, but I got most of it separated. The ink was mostly gone. Just fragments left in blue that had bled through from both sides. Below the foundation. High tide at 3:47. Sounds like breathing, but slower. Key opens nothing but at once. I stopped reading and closed the notebook. My hands weren't shaking, but they felt wrong. Too cold. I set it down next to the rules sheet and looked at Charlotte. "Jerome thought the key was part of a trade," she said. I didn't ask what kind of trade. I already knew. The brass key in the drawer. Rule 4. Place it on the counter at exactly 4:44 a.m. Ring the bell once, wait 30 seconds, then return it to the drawer. Except Jerome never said you had to return it. Charlotte saw my face change. "You're thinking about it." "Yeah. It might work," she said. "Or it might make things worse." I checked my phone. 2:31 a.m. No signal still. The battery was at 68%. I opened the drawer and looked at the brass key sitting in the corner. Small. Old. Heavier than it should be. I left it there and closed the drawer. "We wait," I said. Charlotte nodded and leaned against the wall next to the laundry room door. She crossed her arms. Her breathing had steadied, but her hands were still shaking a little. The lobby was quiet. The vending machine hummed. The neon sign outside buzzed and flickered. I sat down in the chair behind the desk and stared at the monitor. The front door was empty. No fog, no figures. Just the parking lot and my car sitting near the entrance with the driver's side window that didn't roll all the way up anymore. The hallway feed showed clean carpet, no wet footprints, no doors open. The back exit feed showed the door with the push bar that Charlotte said wouldn't budge. It looked normal on the monitor, just a door. I switched back to the front entrance feed and kept watching. 3:33 a.m. came and went, the rattling at the front door that I hadn't consciously registered until it stopped. The lobby warmed up. Not much, maybe 5 degrees. Enough that I noticed the cold leaving. I checked the monitors again. The front entrance was completely empty, no fog pressed against the glass, no figures standing under the failing sign. Then the printer started up. I looked at it sitting there on the counter, unplugged, power cord yanked from the back panel and lying on the desk in 2 pieces where I'd broken the plastic housing. The printer made a soft whirring sound, then a mechanical click, then paper started feeding through. Charlotte pushed off the wall and came closer. "You unplugged it." "I know." The paper came out slow, damp, the same faint seawater smell, but this wasn't a blank keycard sleeve. This was a full registration form, the kind with guest details printed in rows. I watched it print, line by line. My name, Daniel Calhoun. My driver's license number, the one I'd shown Tommy when I arrived. My old Portland address, the apartment where the landlord changed the locks 3 weeks ago. My phone number, my date of birth. The paper finished printing and sat there in the tray. I didn't touch it. Another sheet started. Same information, same details. My full legal name at the top in bold letters. Charlotte leaned over the counter and looked at the printer. "It's pulling your information." "From where?" "The system. Tommy put it in when you signed the job offer." I remembered him taking my license, looking at it, handing it back without writing anything down. I thought he just glanced at it. A 3rd sheet printed, then a 4th. I grabbed the papers and crumpled them together. They were damp and cold and smelled like the footprints in the hallway. I shoved them in the trash under the counter and wiped my hands on my jeans. The printer kept going. 5th sheet, 6th. I checked my phone. 4:17 a.m. 27 minutes until 4:44. I opened the drawer and stared at the brass key. The chain was coiled next to it. The metal looked duller than before. Or maybe that was just the lighting. Charlotte stood next to me. Jerome's rule said to put it on the counter at exactly 4:44. Ring the bell once. Wait 30 seconds. Then return it to the drawer. Yeah. But he also wrote that the key opens nothing. I saw that. So what's the trade? I didn't answer. I was thinking about Jerome's last entry. The one where he said, "The inn doesn't want you. It wants what you'll bring." The printer stopped. I looked over. 7 sheets total sitting in the tray, all with my information. All damp. I left them there. 4:29 a.m. I picked up the brass key. It was heavier than I remembered. The metal was cold enough to sting my palm. I set it on the counter in the exact center and stepped back. Charlotte watched me. "It's not time yet." "I know." We waited. The vending machine hummed. The neon sign buzzed. My phone ticked over to 4:30, then 4:31. At 4:43, I moved closer to the counter. Charlotte stood right next to me, close enough that I could hear her breathing. "Surviving still costs something," she said. I didn't ask what she meant. 4:44 a.m. I reached out and rang the desk bell once. The sound was sharp and clear and wrong in the silent lobby. Then I stepped back and kept my hands at my sides. Something behind the desk clicked. Not the laundry room door. Something else, closer to the wall. I heard a latch release and hinges that sounded like they hadn't moved in years. A door I hadn't seen before swung open, just a crack, maybe 6 inches. Cold air spilled out. Not regular cold, the kind that comes off ocean water in winter. It smelled like tide pools and something metallic, pennies, or blood. I didn't move. Charlotte grabbed my arm but didn't pull me back. Something was moving in the darkness past the door. Careful, slow. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. Wet sounds, dragging, breathing that was too slow and too deep. The brass key sat on the counter between me and whatever was behind that door. I kept my hands at my sides, didn't reach for it, didn't move toward it. A hand came out of the darkness. Wet, pale. The joints were wrong. Too many knuckles. Fingers too long. It moved across the counter and stopped next to the key. I held my breath. The hand picked up the key. The chain slid across the laminate with a soft scraping sound. Then the hand pulled back into the darkness. The door stayed open. I looked at the wall clock. The hands ticked forward. First time all night. 4:45 a.m. The printer went silent. Completely. Not even the settling clicks. I checked the monitor. The fog was gone from the front door, just empty parking lot and pale early light starting at the horizon. The door behind the desk started to close. Slow. The hinges creaked. Then Tommy walked in through the front entrance. He looked the same. Cheap windbreaker, slacks, thinning sandy hair combed back, pale gray eyes that went straight to the counter, to the spot where the brass key should have been. His face didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. "Where is it?" he said. I didn't answer. Charlotte stepped back toward the laundry room door. Tommy walked closer. "Where's the key, Daniel?" I grabbed the mop bucket, the one I'd used on the footprints. The water was still black and tar-colored and smelled like whatever had been in that hallway. I threw it in his face. Tommy screamed, not a normal scream. It warped halfway through, got lower and wetter and wrong, like two voices at once. The skin around his eyes started bubbling, little blisters rising up and popping and running down his cheeks. He stumbled backward and his hands went to his face. I shoved him. Hard. Toward the open door behind the desk. He hit the edge of the counter and spun halfway around. His windbreaker caught on the corner. The thing in the darkness moved fast. I saw the pale hand again. Then another one. They grabbed Tommy by the shoulders and yanked him through the gap. Tommy screamed again. That same warped double voice. Then it cut off. The door slammed shut. The sound echoed through the lobby and then stopped. I stood there breathing hard with the empty mop bucket in my hands. Charlotte was pressed against the wall. Her eyes were wide and her face was white, but she was breathing. The wall clock read 4:51 a.m. I checked the monitor. The parking lot was getting lighter. Dawn coming. The front door was clear. "We need to leave," Charlotte said. "Yeah." I didn't grab my stuff from the car. Charlotte didn't grab anything from the laundry room. We just walked out the front door and got in my Civic. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot without looking back. We drove straight to the Warrenton Police Department. Small building, brick, American flag out front. I parked in the visitor lot and we went inside. A guy at the front desk looked up. Mid-40s, maybe. Neat dark hair, glasses, button-down shirt and tie with an ID badge clipped to his belt. Jackson Carr, according to the badge. "Can I help you?" he said. I told him I needed to file a report. Assault, maybe abduction. I wasn't sure. Jackson got a form and a pen. Then he called back 2 other officers. Christina Finley came first. Patrol uniform. Black hair and a low ponytail. Sharp jawline. She sat across from me and opened a notebook. Harold Wang came second. Older, salt and pepper hair. Rumpled suit jacket. He leaned against the wall and watched me while I talked. I told them everything. The job, the rules, Jerome's notebook, the thing under the building. Tommy getting pulled through the door. Christina wrote it all down. Harold asked questions. Jackson typed. When I finished, Harold looked at Jackson. Run the name. Thomas Taylor. North Jetty Inn. Jackson typed for a minute, then he frowned. No employment record? No business license under that name either. Christina looked at me. You said he hired you Thursday night? Yeah. Did you sign anything? A job offer. 1 page. He took it after I signed. Harold pushed off the wall. We'll send officers to check the location. They did. 2 patrol cars. I waited in the lobby with Charlotte while they drove out. They came back an hour later. Christina found me in the waiting area. The lobby was empty, she said. Front desk was there, computer, phone. We found a damaged printer. No sign of Thomas Taylor. No sign of anyone else. The notebook? I said. Didn't see one. I sat back in the plastic chair. My hands were shaking now. Finally. Harold came over. We'll keep the case open. If you remember anything else, call. He handed me a card. I put it in my pocket. Charlotte and I left. I drove her to her brother's place in Seaside. She got out without saying much. Just thanked me and closed the door. I kept driving, got back on 101, headed south toward Portland. I had $200 in my pocket from the week I didn't finish. My car had a quarter tank. My phone had no messages. I stopped at a gas station outside Cannon Beach and filled up. Inside, I bought a coffee and a breakfast sandwich. The guy at the register asked if I was passing through. Yeah, I said. Where you headed? Not sure yet. He nodded, like that made sense. I got back in my car and kept driving. The sun was up now, full daylight. The ocean was gray and calm on my right. I thought about Jerome's notebook, about Tommy's face when the water hit him, about the hand that took the brass key. I thought about desperate jobs and the things people don't tell you when they're hiring. I made it back to Portland by noon. I didn't go to the apartment with the changed locks. I parked behind a McDonald's and used their Wi-Fi to look for work. No night shifts. I scrolled past anything that said overnight. Anything that said immediate start, no experience, cash weekly. I found a dishwashing job at a diner, day shift. They wanted me to come in for an interview that afternoon. I went. I got the job. I started the next morning. I'm still doing it. The pay's bad and my back hurts and I'm still sleeping in my car most nights, but I work when the sun's up. I clock out before dark. And I don't take jobs from people who won't put their name on paper. That's it. That's what I learned at the North Jetty Inn. Stay desperate if you have to, but don't stay stupid.